Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives of families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In last week's blog, I talked about having a loved one critically ill in intensive care, why your resolve matters. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to talk to you about 5 things you need to do in order to stop worrying about any negative consequences when you challenge the intensive care team's perceived power and perceived authority. Before I get into today's topic, I want to share a quote with you that I wrote on today's topic, and the quote says, "Achieving the outcomes you want and really deserve when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care is the result of aligning yourself internally and externally with your most desired outcomes. This means you mustn't tolerate, accept, or even respect the perceived authority and the perceived power of the intensive care team. The sheer presence of your wrong perceptions and not challenging the intensive care team's assumption is not and can never be congruent or in harmony with your most desired outcomes. If you are intimidated by the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team, if you are worried about any negative consequences when challenging their approach and their assumption, you're vibrationally aligning yourself with the opposite of your desires. The law of attraction says that what you fear you attract, and what you face and look at will disappear. Meaning that if you put up with the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team, you have unconsciously or consciously given away all of your power. The intensive care team's actions are reflective of their true intentions. Your job is to take personal responsibility and accountability and to accept sole responsibility for everyone and everything that shows up in your life as a direct result of your thoughts, words, and deeds. When you refuse to blame others or things that are out of your control for your life circumstances, only then will you be able to take total control of and shape your and your critically ill loved one's destiny effectively. So, let's get into today's topic. Whenever I interact with families of critically ill patients in my consulting sessions on Skype or the phone or via email, I hear the same thing over and over again. At first they are worried to implement my strategies because they are worried about any negative consequences or any repercussions from the intensive care team. The reality and the fact of the matter is that if you do what 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care do, you will never have peace of mind, control, power, and influence. The reality and the fact of the matter is that if you follow what I teach, you will get peace of mind, control, power, and influence very quickly. The reality is that in more than 15 years intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, where I literally worked with thousands of critically ill patients and their families, and where I also worked as a nurse unit manager for more than 5 years, I have seen it all. I know for a fact that if you buy into the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team, you will be doomed, and the intensive care team will walk all over you. Usually the first thing that I teach when you interact with me personally on Skype, over the phone or via email, is to throw all of your strategies, your preconceived notions out of the window. That's exactly right. Whenever you start one-on-one consulting with me via Skype, over the phone or via email, I'll tell you in no uncertain terms that you need to do the total opposite of what everybody else is telling you, and you need to implement it fast in order to get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly. A lot of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who sign up for my one-on-one consulting with via Skype, over the phone or via email are completely shocked and completely taken aback by that And the first thing that I hear is that they can't challenge the intensive care team because they're worried that challenging the intensive care team will have negative consequences and might impact on the care and treatment their critically ill loved one is receiving or not receiving. The fact of the matter is that if you do what the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care do, you will get what 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care get. And in fact, what the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care do is to seek approval and suck up to the intensive care team. The intensive care team has already assumed that this is what you do anyway, and now you have placed yourself and your critically ill loved one at the mercy of the intensive care team, and now you and your critically ill loved one are part of the politics. If that's what you want, continue to do what the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care do. Don't question, don't challenge the intensive care team's assumptions. Keep sucking up to them and keep seeking approval. With that, you will also get the outcomes that the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care get, which is no peace of mind, no control, no power, and no influence. You and your critically ill loved one will get the outcomes that the intensive care team has in mind for you and for your critically ill loved one. Don't say that I haven't warned you. If you want to get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly, you not only need to stop doing what every other family who has a loved one critically ill in intensive care is doing, and you need to do what I teach you in order to get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly. In fact, there are 5 things you need to do in order to stop worrying about any negative consequences when you challenge the intensive care team's perceived power and perceived authority. Let's get right into it. So, number 1. Stop worrying about any negative consequences or any repercussions when you challenge the intensive care team's perceived power and perceived authority. As I've mentioned before, the law of attraction suggests that what you fear you attract, and what you fear and face will disappear. Therefore, face and fear the intensive care team's perceived power and perceived authority for a brief moment and then move on. Face the fear and do it anyway. I promise you that the intensive care team will notice, because they are not used to families challenging them. Intensive care teams most of the times are on autopilot in their dealings with families of critically ill patients, because they are so used in getting what they want. Number 2. Act as if you are used to getting what you want in life and act accordingly. Now, the intensive care team is used to getting what they want in their dealings with families of critically ill patients in intensive care. They are so used in having 99% of the families in intensive care seek approval and suck up to them that it's very easy to structure care and treatment for your critically ill loved one according to their agenda and not yours. The fact of the matter is that if you act congruent and if you act as if you are used to getting what you want in life, chances are that you will. Number 3. Understand that most of the things that you get told by the intensive care team is a direct result of what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. Whatever you get told by the intensive care team, the positioning of your critically ill loved one's prognosis and diagnosis, as well as the care and treatment offered or not offered, is a direct result of what's been happening behind the scenes in intensive care. In fact, and truth being told, the things that are happening behind the scenes in intensive care are so powerful, secretive, and often overwhelming that if you could only have a sneak peek as an outsider, you would be completely surprised and probably disgusted by what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. Number 4. Understand that it's none of your business what the intensive care team thinks about you and your family. Now, the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care are way too concerned about what the intensive care team thinks about them and their family. They are way too concerned in making a good impression and being compliant with whatever the intensive care team is telling them. The reality and the fact of the matter is that if your critically ill loved one is either very unstable and in a very critical condition, or is in a life-threatening situation, or is in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, including long-term ventilation, or if your loved one is having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury, or your critically ill loved one may be threatened with an NFR, not for resuscitation, or DNR, do not resuscitate order, or your critically ill loved one may be in a situation where the intensive care team suggests a withdrawal of treatment or a limitation of treatment as being, quote-unquote, in the best interest of your critically ill loved one. Or your loved one may even be approaching their end of life in intensive care. In those situations, it's none, but absolutely none of your business what the intensive care team thinks about you if you want to get the desired outcomes for your critically ill loved one and your family. Your job is to get results quickly, and your job is to get peace of mind, control, power and influence very quickly. If you are concerned what other people think about you, you might as well throw in the towel and keep seeking approval. Number 5. Change your body language. Whenever I see families of critically ill patients in intensive care, the 99% of families who have no peace of mind, no power, no control and no influence at all, they all say it with their body language, and they say it loudly. In fact, their body language screams so loudly that they don't believe that they can have peace of mind, control, power and influence. They usually cry, they have their heads down, their shoulders are slumped, their back is hunched, they have their arms crossed, they avoid a strong handshake and they avoid strong eye contact. Change all of this to a powerful, open posture and body language by holding your head up, move your shoulder backwards, walk with a straight back, uncross your arms, have a strong handshake and make strong eye contact, and the intensive care team will notice. Do just that and the intensive care team will notice straight away that they are dealing with a powerful family who's not concerned about any negative consequences when you challenge the intensive care team's perceived power, perceived authority and their assumptions. So, how can you stop worrying and how can you get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions, discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You'll get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You'll get crucial behind the scenes insights so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section, where I answer your questions, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call us. Find phone numbers on our Contacts tab. Also check out our product section, where you get more ebooks, videos and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting with me via Skype, over the phone, or via email by clicking on the Products tab. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.